Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Reginal Drummer, the peopleologist, and welcome to another episode of We Are Ready, where we focus on sharing some things that can help you, me, our family, and our community stay ready. Some of the issues that we talk about very critical for the forward movement and survival of our families, especially now, whether it's dealing with the COVID-19 situation, whether it's dealing with unemployment, whether it's dealing with any type of family crisis. The family is really strained. And every week, we just try to bring some information that can help you. I encourage you to sit back, like, share, subscribe, and spread the news. We are ready. If we are ready, then we don't have to get ready. I'm joined this evening by our local uh, health and wellness and mental health coach and therapist, Miss Sha'ria Thomas. Miss Thomas, welcome to the conversation. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day to be alive and well. And we we're just looking at some things that are critical for our community, and we always like to focus on some things that sometimes we don't like to talk about. One of those areas is our mental health. How we feel about ourselves can directly affect how we interact with other people. Uh, and before we just get deep into the conversation, I know you have some things and tips, and you work with many people in your practice as far as helping people to cope and deal with this current situation that we're currently in. And we always encourage people to pray, to fast, meditate, but then sometimes sometimes and oftentimes we have to go a little bit beyond just you know those standard practices, and hoping that we'll be able to cope with some of these difficulties, some of these mental challenges that we all are facing, from our children all the way up to our adults. So, is there anything you want to open up and share with us this evening?
Well, I want to just start with opening up since we are in Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month is really that the key is focusing on prevention and overall just wellness and mental health. I will say it again and again, mental health is every day. And if we can change our thought process in terms of looking at our overall health, and mental health is one area, just wellness overall is our mental, our physical, our spiritual, our emotional, our occupational. All of those elements make up our wellness. And if we see it as just a way of life and living more of a healthier life, then we're able to be more resilient when crisis comes. So I hope that, and I'm thankful, Drummer, to have this platform to be able to speak to your audience, our community, to really help us to make those adjustments just in our everyday life, to start putting it as a priority. Wellness overall, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and seeing it as paramount, so that when crisis hit, then we're really able to be resilient and recover. And so I hope that I'm able to share as much as I possibly can to at least help those in need, help those who care to know and would like more information, and provide resources to get the assistance professionally or whether in the community that is needed and available to them.
Uh, Thank you, thank you. Uh, do you have a contact number or a health type mental health resource number that you want to put out? I know we'll put it out a little bit later, but we want to put it out early.
Sure, why not? In terms of if we're focusing on suicide prevention, I get just overall, I'll just give actually some resources.
Okay.
Of course, for myself, anyone who is interested in whether it is mental health therapy, substance abuse counseling,
Okay. We might have a little drop right there. Uh, can you
contact
still hear
me
us?
at 47020. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Am I still here?
Yes, ma'am. I think you
Okay.
have broken up.
Okay.
So give them your contact information again, please.
Okay. So my direct contact information would be 470-206-8205, or reach me on my web.
We didn't. We're not getting that website.
Are you there? Or am I
Yes.
coming in okay? Okay.
Uh,
That website again is Sha'ria Thomas, Sharia Thomas, THOMAS.com. Also email info@shariathomas.com. And I want to give some specific resources that one could reach out to.
okay.
And that will be 1-800-273-TALK. That is a suicide prevention hotline. It is anonymous, meaning that you do not need to give your information. If you are in need of assistance, then you can contact that number. It's free. And they will even see about referring you to a potential professional assistance within your area.
Okay. Appreciate those resources. I guess one of the first questions, because we are being bombarded, look like now more than ever, from uh, the smallest in our family, the young children. I know going back to school has been a challenge for many young people. Going back to the work place has been a challenge for many older adults. And within the family, uh, we're dealing with a whole lot of things. You know, we we put it out there. There's like a divide where you got people dealing with the mask wearers against the non-mask wearers, the vaccinated against the non-vaccinated, and like I said, our young people, our older ones are being exposed. And we getting hit with so many political things, and still we got to deal with crime and a whole lot of other issues. Are there certain tools that I could say, if in the mental toolbox, certain things that we need to kind of keep in our mindset? I know sometimes prayer is usually the go-to, but are there
Mhm.
other things, other tools that, like, I guess, coping tools that for for future situations uh that we kind of need, uh are there certain things that you recommend that people focus on a little bit more? I know prayer is always a kind of go-to. People says just pray, not putting prayer down, but what are some of the other coping tools dealing with this mental strain that we currently in?
Sure. Some of the coping tools to deal with the mental strain that we are in, there are so many, and to do a blanket, of course we can do that, but I want us to consider, even as individuals, people looking at what is their stressor. Let's start there.
Okay.
What for some, in terms of what really is stressful for you on a day-to-day basis, just as you said, Drummer, in terms of just how the impact of the world, how COVID has impacted everyone's life. And if we were to centralize that, meaning that, okay, for one person it may be that it's impacted the sense of their connection with others, because there is a sense of more caution, fear to socialize as much. So that's one, and that's one I could give a coping skill for, and I'll come back to that. And say another might be a stressor to where someone has their employment may be impacted. So that's another major stressor, and it impacts your mental and emotional well-being, and can really affect one's way of perspective of viewing their life moving forward. So identifying first what is your stressor.
Mm,
Oftentimes people are, it's easy to just be consumed as in a state of just worry or even a sense of anguish because they may feel out of control. So being able to first come to a sense of, what I would call it, we call it just a check-in. How often do we just literally, before getting up, before you're starting your day, check in with how you're feeling, what's going on with you, how do you want to present and take the day? It's so easy that we are bombarded. Turn on your phone, turn on the TV, and
mm,
so bombarded by so much external stimuli that you really haven't taken the time for self. And I would encourage that that be a starter. Identify what's your stressor and check in with yourself. And even with that check in, it could be as simple as mental, that you literally in your mind, you consider, okay, how am I doing today? What have I been through? And how am I okay with how my life is right now? Am I affected by what's going on around me? The reason that, and we look at being preventive and building on that wellness as becoming more resilient, is that we create more of a mental habit for ourselves, that we create a barometer, we create a sense of center, that even when, say, a crisis may come, it doesn't throw us so far from our center that it's hard for us to recover.
mm,
Um, I'm very transparent. I'm a therapist that, and a coach that I like to disclose, because we're all human and we all go through things. And so I had a family member, my sister actually, who was very close to near death, just very recently. And so being able to understand, I have to use my tools, and it's something that I have to go back to recalibrate and really connect to. Wow, someone that you love can be taken away in just a split moment. And in that's definitely going back to gratitude, creating your positive perspective. But what we don't always talk about, it's in the middle, it goes from positive, negative. But our neutral mind, and our neutral mind is one that is best to stay in, because every experience won't be positive. So that check in, that sense of identifying your stressors, knowing what they are, and then we can go from there. Now I can continue on, but I want to give you a chance to kind of chime in, but
uh,
you tell me
yeah,
if I need to
yes,
give a little bit more.
yes, that's a good one there. Matter of fact, that's one of our challenges over the next 100 days is to spend a little, is at least, now we say spend at least an hour a week with yourself. A lot of people never get the opportunity to spend some time with themselves. You know,
Mhm.
you know, cutting the cell phones off, not checking the emails, unplugging from the television, the news, not looking at all the COVID numbers that are up or down, and
Yeah,
just giving yourself time to unwind. And often, and a lot of times in males, because we say, oh, yeah, I can handle that. I ain't got no problem with that. I can deal with that. And it can put us in a situation where uh, we frustrated. And then when you're frustrated with yourself, you take, some of those actions out on other people, because we see a lot of people acting out. not just
Mhm.
with the small ones. In some classrooms, you could look across the internet. They got young ones, fighting and fussing in the classroom. Then you got grown people in public places. Uh, a lot of anxiety, a lot of buildup. But if you do get a chance to kind of unwind, you're not as tense. So that's a good one. Uh, that helps me to kind of be in a neutral space. Not
Mhm.
saying that a bad thing can't happen or a good thing is always going to happen, but
Right.
either we going through something, about to go through something, or just coming out of something. And the better you prepare yourself, I guess, in my case, I don't get too excited if I'm winning, and I don't get too depressed if I'm losing. So that's a good one. Yeah.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you for sharing that, drummer. Yeah, I love the way that you said in terms of, I wasn't familiar with your 100-day challenge, but that's beautiful and that coincides exactly what we're talking about here. Because there is so much that we are stimulated by just being able to what is just set some boundaries, set
Mm.
some not just physical boundaries for yourself, but emotional boundaries. And that is knowing when to say no, knowing when to say no, turn off the TV and turning off your phone at times. Give yourself some boundaries on not even uh, on occasions, but I would encourage, and I do with my clients and even myself, is set a boundary with yourself daily. You know,
Mm.
if we look at that's the sense of the buildup not happening because you can regulate your emotions in a way that you don't take in so much. So determining, hey, my day looks like this. I'm going to set this time where I just do wind down. I'm not answering the phone. I'm not checking email. So it's setting those healthy boundaries more on a consistent basis. Then we're being more preventive and being more prepared when something does happen, that is more of a crisis, then you're better able to handle it.
Mm. Exactly. You know, uh, I know a lot of caregivers and first responders, even teachers in the classroom. Uh, they on the front lines and
Mhm.
dealing with people like in their day to day actions. Uh, those tools can really be effective in helping us to cope with things because uh, definitely now, even within families, it's getting more difficult uh, to, you know, have a conversation about different things without getting overly involved. You, you know, uh, I was, matter of fact, sidebar conversation. I was just listening to our former president. He made an appearance in Perry, Georgia, and he's still talking in a way that kind of get a lot of people anxious,
Mm.
whether dealing with the vaccines, the current administration. And matter of fact, one of my other friends called me and he said, man, you got to see it. He's back, he's back, he's back. He was so excited. This is a grown man. He was so excited. He was like a little kid. And
Right.
he's been kind of depressed, not super depressed since January, you know, uh, but looked like he was so pumped up this weekend. And in a way, I was like, man, hmm, we might not agree on politics, but at least look like he's feeling better. So
Right.
sometimes people have to get something, they have to have a real high feeling to feel good or not, kind of hide away from people. So, uh, but I guess adding another thing, what are some of the signs, because within our family, if we have kids, they in school, they might not say nothing to us about how the other kids are treating them. Most, even in the workplace, we might not share with our families, you know, what's going on, and how things are going, because people are being, I guess, it's kind of bullied uh, with a lot of these scenarios that's going on, whether it be especially now with COVID, whether it be wearing a mask or being vaccinated or unvaccinated. We recently, uh, there was a lady that called us, and they jumped on her at work because not, her and another lady got into a scuffle over just vaccines.
Oh,
So there's a lot of build up anxiety, and I know some of the tools that that we can do to recognize
mm-hmm,
when somebody's probably going through something. And sometimes I'm a good listener, so I'll listen to people. Is
mm-hmm.
communication a good tool to put in the toolbox?
Most definitely, drummer. Communication, and we'll add the word assertive communication.
Mm,
Now, assertive communication, meaning that there are there are three types of communication, from passive, assertive, and aggressive. And what
okay.
you talked about in terms of people being easily triggered, meaning that someone may say something, do something, and they're quickly to react instead of respond. And they come from a place of what I think, and it can be very focused on their perspective and not being respectful or willing to understand the perspective of others. That would be considered more of an aggressive way of communicating. Passive is that I'm willing to take in the other person's perspective as more important than my own. And those are the people that may be more likely to be bullied, or they don't speak and use their voice on what's important to them. And so that would be passive. The meeting in the middle and the middle ground we want to that will be helpful for all of us as a world community is assertive communication, and
Mm,
communicating in a way that we can be open to listen, meaning that in listening is that I'm willing to give you that right to express what you think, what you feel, and at the same time, that although your opinion and your beliefs may be different than mine, that I will respect it and be willing to create more of a conversation about it, because that's how we can learn from each other. Um, and sometimes people never learn that. That's a skill that oftentimes I come across, even in my practice, that people I have to
mm,
teach clients, adults, children of many ages, how to assertively communicate. Bless you.
right. Excuse me.
So
Right.
that definitely will take a lot of the hostility, the volatile talk and the misunderstandings that happen, if we're willing to speak in ways of have that right, give each other that personal right to express what we think and feel, but be willing to listen to the other person, even if it's different than what we may think and feel, and that is okay.
That's good. Because for some reason, people seem to be a lot more polarized, and
Hmm.
I don't know whether it's the information that they get, and they just don't believe or think about nothing else, no one else, and it, uh, if you locked into a belief system and you just think is my way or the highway.
Mm,
Even with your kids, you have to be a little bit more open minded,
yeah.
because uh, everybody's got an opinion, and some, it's good to, just cause I you know I might not agree with your what you're doing, and then
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I'm still trying to protect myself, but
Yes.
I don't. try to overly, just bully my position, even when it comes down to my family. Whatever view I have or something, and I know we throw that in mask wearing, vaccines, or political views. Uh, some and now look like people a lot more vulgar when they encounter other people. I mean, they actually cussing people out and getting violent. Uh, so some people are afraid to say anything when they go into the workplace. They just keep their mouth closed, because people ask them, "Hey, they just get in your face. You can,
Mhm.
and it's like the young people. They say they turn up. I mean, it's like the volume is already high, and you already know it might be a confrontation, and some of these confrontations can lead to violence, and then some of those confrontations can put people into a depressed mode where they they do contemplate suicide, especially a
Mm.
lot of our younger people. Uh, but uh, that's a good one. Communication. Anything else? What's another one?
In terms of just tools to use,
Yes, ma'am.
when we talk about, the word depression has come up, the word suicide has come up. So I want us to tie that in and connect that as we build on more tools to use, to
Mhm.
help just navigate the climate of society now, and just overall navigating life in a more healthier way. So as as we look at suicide prevention month and suicide awareness month, people first don't realize how much suicide affects, especially us here in the US. It is the 10th leading cause of death, and it is the second leading cause of death for ages between about 24 to about 34, and the third leading cause of death for teenagers up to around the 15 to 24-year-old mark. So what does that say? That that demonstrates a sense of there needs to be more connection with what is causing this sense of depressed state, because oftentimes majority there is a either some sense of depression or even manic depression, meaning bipolars, meaning a depression and more of a higher state and a manic state, emotional as well as mental difficulties that one may experience, and suicide, and they may attempt suicide or actually complete suicide.
Right.
So I like for us to focus on that, the sense of strengthening our ability, of just creating more resiliency in day-to-day life. And oftentimes when we accomplish or we have moments, we do need to
I know you're breaking up, Miss Thomas. Maybe there's a reception problem. Uh, but those are some great golden nuggets when it comes down to dealing with depression, uh, suicide, and a whole lot of things that challenge us mentally in our community. And we have to be ready. You might not be able to prepare for everything. Miss Thomas will be joining us a little bit. I think she'll get back in there. But we might not be able to stop everything, but the stronger we are mentally and physically, when you talk about mind, body, and soul, the greater our chances of survival, especially now. Because we said earlier, either you're going to be going through a situation, just coming out of a situation, or about to go into a situation. And those situations could be good or bad. Uh, you could be going into a situation where you got good news, good job, you just got some money, you might have won the lotto, I don't know what, a promotion. And then you might just be coming out of a situation that was somewhat depressing, somewhat sad. Maybe you lost some money, maybe you lost a business, maybe you got fired. Uh, but no matter what, everything continuously goes around, and we have to be ready for the ups and the downs, the lows and the highs. Uh, and the better we are at accepting those things, the greater our chances of survival, especially now. Uh, we have to look out for our family members. If you can spot some, family, friends, or loved ones that might be going through some depression, a lot of times, when we look at over the last 2 years, many of the comforts uh, have been removed. Some people were able to go to the job and ease up a lot of stress. They might be able to go to a sports bar or go to their church, their mosque, or their temple. But with a lot of those places and spaces being closed, a lot of people had to just stay home. And many people, I guess developed some form of cabin fever or whatever and got depressed. And then that puts us into a position where you have anxiety about going back out. Because believe it or not, I've had people that call me, they said, "Drummer, have you been out there yet?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" I mean, they said we can go back. And that's a big thing. Now, whether you've been going out and, you know, manipulating around the group, the people, or whatever, uh, uh, okay, Ms. Thomas will be coming back in and with us. So as soon as you can reconnect, we'll join you into the conversation. But maybe you hadn't been able to interact with other people. It's something about humans interacting with other humans, even your kids going back to school, or even when they were sequestered in the home. A lot of families had to find out who their kids were. Some were good situations. We walked into some things and found out your kids were pretty good. Then you found out that your kids had some challenges at school. And that might have strengthened how you look at teachers today, you know, and uh, vice versa. If you're working from home, uh, a lot of people, because of COVID-19, whether we call it a pandemic, a plandemic, or pandemonium, uh, have been working from home. And some people say, Drummer, I don't think I'm gonna go back into the workplace. I don't feel comfortable. I just don't want to be around all those people. So some people have found new ways and means of, you know, making a living. One of the things that we need to throw in, uh, we we put a challenge together. There are all types of challenges. They got the crate challenge where you climb up the crates, and some people have been successful, but some people have actually fallen off the crates. If you've seen the crate challenge, it is what it is. But our challenge is, and Ms. Thomas will be joining us, so I'm gonna put this out real quick. One is to spend at least 1 hour a week with me, myself, and I. And the second part of the challenge is to walk, crawl, or hop, or run at least 1 mile a day. And the third part of the challenge is to save at least $1 a day over the next 100 days. Believe it or not, you'll have $100. If you want to get a little bit better, you can save $10 a day. And believe it or not, in the next 100 days, you'll have, you guessed it, $1,000. If you get real good, you can do $100 a day with a group or others. We've shared that on our daily uh, podcast over on Facebook. But Ms. Thomas, are you there?
I am. I do apologize for the technical difficulties.
Oh, that's okay. Yes, we stay in a neutral position, so it didn't upset us.
There we go. I love it. I love it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
so
learning.
Reggie,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
so Reggie, we're going to experiment right now. Unfortunately, one of our guests, we were having some technical difficulties, but
Okay.
we're going to test this out. Joining us right now is Mr. James Davenport. He is the president and founder of Hit and Run Help Foundation. Mr. Davenport, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Reggie,
Hey,
can you hear
welcome,
him?
Mr. Davenport. Yes, you sounding loud and clear.
Okay.
How you doing this evening?
Well, best day of my life. How are you?
We're doing great. I can't complain. It's a great day to be alive and well.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Mr.
you have
Davenport,
something.
if you would, to get us started, if you could tell us, how you came to start the Hit and Run Help Foundation. I know this is a deeply personal story, and I just want to let you know on the phone you have Reginal Drummer and you have Miss Sha'ria Thomas. She's a mental health therapist and here based in Atlanta, Georgia. So if you could share your story, and also we have people watching on YouTube. So if you could share your story with us.
Okay, first giving honor to God, who I oftentimes call my conductor. I don't have a PhD, but I do have a GOD.
Mm,
As a fact, on December 13th, 2013, my brother was killed, hit and run pedestrian fatality. As a matter of fact, he was crossing the street coming home one day from work, and someone hit him, ran over, and left for dead. Matter of fact, I actually started a reward fund, but I did not set it up properly for people to send the money in. And let's fast forward. June 2017, his first son took his own life.
wow.
Joseph Davenport Jr. January 1, 2019, his second and last son took his own life. Therefore, I set up the Hit and Run Help Foundation. And as we stand right now, I'm in the process of all of my recertifications and trying to file for a 501c3. And incidentally, we are in the middle of we're in the middle of an awareness program as far as suicides. We're Suicides and Prevention Month for September. And that being said, my brother's first son who took his own life, he was born in September. So was I. My birthday was yesterday. So I actually had a awareness day on yesterday at a celebration of my birthday. And we had an awareness little celebration right here where I live in Atlanta, Cosby Sphere High Rise. So that being said, that's how I connect these two events. The Hit and Run Help Foundation is actually geared toward people who are lost, hit and run pedestrian fatality. One thing I might add, I was a speaker going for a bill. We were successful in changing the law in the state of Georgia as far as punishment for a person who was found guilty. So we actually was able to influence the legislator to increase the penalty for someone who was found guilty. So that's about, what I have concerning the Hit and Run Help Foundation.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mr. Davenport, first of all, I just want to thank you for speaking on that. And I think that I'm going to allow Reggie and Ms. Thomas, you'll be hearing their voices. But I think that while we talk about awareness, could you speak to, because with both the hit and run as well as with suicide, there are the survivors of this. And could you talk to us about your family and the impact to your family in both of these situations?
Yes, well, actually, that was a rather bizarre time. If you could imagine, firstly, my brother and I were very, very close. We're a little more than a year apart, and I actually witnessed him lying in the street. Thereafter, we being a close knit family, might I add, and announcing it to the family, everybody took it hard. Now with the suicides, and sometimes I cringe when I mention that word. When my brother's first son took his own life, there was some events going on in the house that I did not understand. There was noises and whatever. And his closest sister, my brother's and wife's first child, she was hysterical. She was livid, and I did not understand what had gone on. And then I was told that Joseph Jr. had took his own life. And, from that point, not only from my brother's death, our worlds started to change. And I would have these nights where I'm laying down and trying to sleep. However, I could not sleep because I'm always visioning my brother lying in the street, covered up. They would not allow me to see him because the reason they said they did not tell me why I couldn't see him, as a matter of fact. But I found out the day of his homegoing. Some of you may not want to hear this, but the reason they did not let me identify the body is because his skull was crushed. So I guess I was glad that I didn't see it. But the impact that it had on our family, I could just see, if you could imagine, just darkness for quite a while. To have not only that particular tragedy, but to have a triple tragedy in, even though they're a couple of years apart, but, it would seem like a domino effect, and not saying that, we would seem like we were cursed or anything. I took this as a positive. One of the things that I did after my brother was actually killed, I dedicated my life to him. And if you can see me now, everybody would tell you I only wear black in honor of my brother. That's how tight we were. Our entire family was very tight knit. My mother would come from a litter of 15 years. My grandmother and grandfather sponsored 15 children. So if you can imagine, at one point they had 32 grandchildren, and all of that increased. So we were a very close family, still is, as a matter of fact. So this thing has actually carried on, and I continue to carry it on. And by the way, they've yet to find the person who killed him. Now, okay?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that. I'm going to turn it over to Reggie and Miss Thomas.
Okay.
Right. And thank you, Miss Adrian. And definitely our condolences to you and your family, Brother Davenport. That's something very tragic and, disheartening. And I know the family still seeks closure in the death of your brother, but to have two suicides, as a family, or are you all having, any counseling going on there, or what are you doing?
Well, I don't know whether either of his remaining children, he has 3 remaining daughters and 1 stepdaughter. I have not heard of anyone going through any counseling. I know my mother did not go through any counseling. Neither of my siblings have gone through any counseling. But I continue, to keep this, if I might add, this flame burning. One of the things I will say that I have been successful in, I have always recognized that date, December 13th, 2013, and I was able to get a proclamation from the city of Atlanta a couple 2 years ago, and they did recognize that day, hit and run pedestrian fatality day. And I have a letter written up. I am petitioning the president for a national day of awareness for hit and run pedestrian fatality. One of the things that took place before Congressman Lewis transitioned, maybe about 5 months before, he had spoken before the Atlanta Board of Education. And I spoke to him in person, and I asked him, would he assist me in obtaining a National Day of Awareness for hit and run pedestrian fatalities. He agreed. So we all know, that next year, he transitioned. Now, that being said, I most recently, even last week, contacted our congressperson now who fills his seat, Nakima Williams' office, and asked them if they would actually carry it on and assist me in obtaining that particular feat as far as, because, one of the things that's going on, too many people have a total disregard for human life. I guess if everybody can see every time you turn on the news, you hear somebody hit and run, a pedestrian walking in the street. It's gotten to be as if somebody taking this as a hobby or something like that, not meaning to say it like that, but it just seems that, people just freelancing with other people's lives.
Wow. And I can see, that's a devastating, the hit and run itself, and then the suicide of your nephews. Is there something you want to add, Ms. Thomas? From your professional?
I thought you were talking to me.
Yes, I do. Mr. Davenport, this is Sha'ria Thomas, and I'm a therapist and life coach, and I commend you for your cause and just you sharing with us and how you continue to keep the legacy of your brother alive through your foundation. I can imagine what your family has been through just as it relates to your brother's death and then the death of his two children, that there was a lot of trauma. And even as you were speaking and telling about how, you were having those memories and even images of your brother, just having trauma and experiencing trauma. And unfortunately, it's not a lot that we communicate and we talk about and we give air and space to be able to release the stigma of mental health, of suicide. And so just being able to hear, your perspective of how it's impacted your life, and you've used it in a way that has been very resilient. I want to kind of touch on just even with you saying you don't know if they receive counseling, and it's definitely understandable because unfortunately many still have a negative connotation when it comes to counseling, and seeing it as either a weakness or for people that are crazy, instead of recognizing the need to reach out for help is actually courageous and can help us to cope better and really be more resilient in times of a crisis. I just want to connect that as it relates to did you, on your end, when it comes to your nephews, was there any signs or any indication of their own mental health being challenged and any sense of depression that they may have been experiencing?
Well, initially, I would have to say no, and the reason I would say that, and I'm oftentimes telling people these are things that the way God connects his dots. My brother was a former Army sergeant. He spent about 7 years in the military. His second son, Jamal, was a corporal in the Marines, and actually he was here on leave. He was intending to go back Not on leave, but matter of fact, he had done one term, and he was going back to Japan to go to school. His first son, who took his own life, was actually, he had enrolled in school at Gordon College, and he had done a year, and when he came home, and well, might I add, that's one of the reasons that I started the Hit and Run Help Foundation, because I wanted to be able to provide scholarship for my brother's offspring. However, as the days have grown, I understand the need not only for my family, but there are other kids who have lost a loved one hit and run pedestrian fatality. And I intend to grow this foundation with the help of other people and anybody who's listening, not only for my family, but for someone's child who's left behind in a similar situation. And as you're saying, sometimes you just could not imagine, what a person would go through. And when I mentioned that I would lie in bed at night and envisioning my brother laying, in the street, the only thing that I could do was, after hours, just force myself to put it out of my mind, and then I would sleep. But it took a long time for me to conquer that.
Right. And thank you for sharing that, because that's what we want to put that across as it relates to being okay with not being okay, and knowing that it is okay to seek that professional assistance to navigate that process. Because what we're talking about, and thank you for that kind of background as it relates to all your brother and even your nephews being in the Army, that there may have been some pretense of post-traumatic stress that they may have been experiencing, even with yourself, Mr. Davenport, and it being so hard to kind of put it out your mind, and having those images being hard to sleep. Those are indications of what we call PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. After trauma comes that acute stress of how to deal with it. And it's difficult to deal with that level of grief after experiencing such a trauma. And, for on my end, I hope that at least we can break down the barrier, the wall, and be okay with being not okay, and being willing to seek the help when needed. So we can prevent a life from being taken by suicide or some other precondition that we may not be aware of. Because at the root of suicide, there is majority, up to about 70%, there is depression there. So although, your nephews were on the surface of dealing with just still in surface level of meeting the challenges in life, going back to school, there was internal issues that obviously weren't dealt with, or that they would not have ended their lives. So we start just
I will say that you're absolutely right, because the first son, when he first started exhibiting different mannerisms, he would walk around and say, "I'm gonna get a gun and I'm gonna kill this person who killed my daddy." Now we're talking about 2 years after that. With his second son, that was an episode that one night we get a call and somebody saying that my nephew is in the middle of Memorial Drive at night with his underwear on, encouraging people to run over him. So, there were signs. However, me not being a doctor, my nieces not being a doctor, who knows what to do, in situations like that, other than to just try to cuddle and comfort your loved one. With me being who I am, I would not know anything to do.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because that's where we go from there, is what to do, knowing how do you get the help, that those signs when someone says they want to kill someone else, or they are exhibiting what might be bizarre behavior, is, we might consider the saying that is above my pay grade, but this is a loved one. And if you know that you aren't able to get that help, that's the time to truly reach out for assistance. In a past episode, I have given information about contacting Behavioral Health Link. I'm sure that the producer probably has that information, but first off, simple would be 911. If you don't have specifically mental health resources available at that time, because then they can send out, and even saying that, hey, can I get a wellness check? That's an indicator when we call 911 that we just want someone to be checked on, and literally they can come out and evaluate. So we don't know what to do, but if we can start being okay with not knowing what to do, but also asking questions when we don't know. And that kind of leads me in that I want us to also look at the warning sign, because it's easy that at times we may overlook them, not know. It's not about blame or anything. You just don't know. And when we don't know, then it's hard to be able to decipher of what help we can give and how to be able to reach out. And so if someone is talking about, they're better off not here, or they don't want to be here, it could be as small and as simple as that. That is an indicator we don't want to overlook. We want to just question what's going on. Here's the support. How can I help you? Are you having thoughts of suicide? That is a very.
If I might add, that being said, just of what I did yesterday with this day of awareness, out of the blue, a couple of weeks ago, I just started feeling down and thinking about my nephews, and this being Awareness Month for suicide, and I carried that, for a couple of weeks, and just it was just early this week that when my brother called me and asked me about my birthday, and then God told me, concerning awareness and prevention for suicide. So on the fly, I put together that day of awareness. We had about 35, maybe 40 people that dropped in. But that was something that just all of a sudden came over me, that I was feeling down because of losing my nephews in a similar fashion.
Yes. Only understandable, Mr. Davenport. Only understandable. And that's good that, I was just going to say, just that's wonderful that in how you've been proactive and advocating for change and helping those in need. So I commend you for that.
Well, Mr. Davenport, we want to thank you so very much for sharing. I think it's important that, because a lot of times we carry these burdens in silence, and particularly in our communities, sometimes we don't speak about it for a lot of reasons, particularly around suicide in the faith community. Sometimes we look down on people as that, they weren't Christian enough or what have you. There's lots of barriers and traditions that won't allow us to speak publicly or allow us to go out and get the help that, Ms. Thomas is sharing with us. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Before we let you go, would you please tell us about your foundation, and if people would like to get more information, how they can do that?
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Day. And before I say anything else, I want to thank you, because it's the day I met you. You have been such a dedicated advocate, and as I call you and I tell you all the time, I really do appreciate you. Now, with the Hit and Run Help Foundation, I am currently seeking assistance to raise money for my filing fees and intending to file for a 501c3. My intention is to go for the long form 501c3 because I do intend to take this program nationally. And people, for my birthday, I had people, to donate $5, to my Cash App, which would be $James Dennis Davenport, and you can put up under there, what it's for, the Hit and Run Help Foundation. And trust me, they do report those things because I found out because when you're doing government assistance, they know how much money you're raking in. Also, if anybody want to write a check for 20 cents, 25 cents, or 50 cents, they can just mail it to me, 355 North Avenue, Northeast, Apartment A as in Apple, -811, Atlanta, Georgia, 30308. And before I go any further, I have to say, LA Pink with the Street Groomers have contributed. One of my mentors, if most of you all know, the first black linebacker for the city of Atlanta Falcons, Dewey McClain, brought me a check on yesterday. Civil rights attorney Joe Griggs has contributed. Regional manager for Walmart, Mr. Stacy McKinney, donated the food for my awareness day on yesterday. So, there have been people chipping in here and there, but we got a long way to go. And I would really appreciate for anybody who would, assist in raising these funds, because I think it's a great cause. And like I say, I do intend to take this program nationally.
Well, Mr. Davenport, I want to thank you again so very much for joining us tonight, and keep us updated as you have future events, and we'd love to have you back on in the future, okay?
And anytime you want me, Miss Adrian, you just call me. And I tell people all the time, call me 24 hours. I don't screen any calls. I answer all my calls.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Reggie, last word.
Yeah, thank you, brother, and continue to work. I know your family, you picked up the mantle and did something positive with the loss of your brother, your nephews, and continue to put that work in, and to encourage them to seek some type of help, because everybody grieves differently, and if you can get help, that helps. Okay. And to everybody out there, and thank you, Ms. Thomas, for always giving us, a professional insight, because sometimes we just don't know what we never, sometimes we just don't think about what we need to do. And anytime you can get assistance, it helps. So we appreciate, do you want to give them any other contact information or any resources before we close out this evening?
Sure, I can do that, Drummer. Thank you again for having me. As always, I am here and available for our community.
Yes.
And so as we were, I want to offer one that's for veterans, since that's come up as it relates to Mr. Davenport and his family, and because they are more prone and more vulnerable in terms of the trauma that they may experience. I want to give a crisis line number for veterans. I already gave the one for suicide prevention. Am I still here? Are you still hearing me, Drummer? Am I still there with you?
Yes, ma'am. You're still here?
I hope I'm still here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I
just want to repeat it. At the beginning of the hour, we talked about a resource called the Suicide Hotline, 1-800-273-TALK. So that's 1-800-273-TALK, and that's for anyone, and it's anonymous. But one I also want to add is for veterans. This is for people that have served in the military of any branch, and knowing that they probably may be exposed to trauma. And when we're exposed to trauma and it's unhealed trauma, it can manifest in many ways. And Mr. Davenport was giving, just accounts of what that he experienced in his family. So that number there is 1-800-273-8255. Again, I'll repeat that, 1-800-273-8255. And that is an anonymous crisis line specifically for veterans. So we have that one for the suicide hotline, as well as one for veterans, and hopefully that'll assist. We already have the behavioral health link, and simply calling 911 and asking for a well check for your loved one or someone that you may think be in need.
Yes. And thank you, Ms. Thomas, being our resident self-help therapist and mediator for helping so many people. Thank you for what you do and what you continue to do. Thank you, Miss Adrian, for being the producer with the most. Thank you for the audience out there. We encourage you to subscribe, share, like, and put these posts out that we are ready. And in order for us to be ready, we have to stay ready. And part of staying ready is to really prepare ourselves on a regular daily basis. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. We love you like God loves the world. We'll definitely see you from the top, at the top or from the top. And take care of yourself. Look out for your family. Look out for yourself. Look out for your family. And look out for your community. So until the next episode, take care. Stay ready.